Welcome, everybody, to the Unsalted AMA on January 18th. Excited to be back. We are going to focus primarily on the Celsius refinancing today, but happy to address any other topics that are of interest as we go through the show today. Excited, as always, to have the Unsalted crew here. We have Kelly, myself, Shawn, and Justin. Justin, welcome back after being a little bit under the weather, to say the least, for the last 2 weeks.
Thank you very much. Appreciate it. Looking forward to actually having normal and clear mind. It was very rough 2 weeks for sure. Appreciate it.
So let me give a little bit of a preview of what we're going to cover. I'm going to go over a little bit of the timeline of what we are anticipating is going to happen now that we are on the other side of the election that was due yesterday at midnight, whether for those that wanted to refinance. We will then go through a number of topics that have come up frequently in our conversations and questions, talk through those. We also want to spend a little bit of time talking about earned settlements. That has come up as a question about if somebody is getting an earned settlement, how might they be able to convert that into a loan? And we have some recommendations there. And then we're also going to talk about the SALT Lend program. So, SALT is a lending and borrowing company. And so we have products that allow you to earn on your assets that you lend to SALT to either back loans or for other opportunities. And we'll cover off that later in the show. So to kick it off, let me talk about, first of all, I think one of the most important things is there has clearly been an increase in the number of scams that are out there. So just want to have everybody be aware and be vigilant in terms of the emails and messages that you're getting. If you ever have a question of whether something is coming from SALT, don't hesitate to reach out directly to us at either support@saltlending.com or sales@saltlending.com. If you are not yet a customer, which you should be, if you are a customer, you can go through the mobile app or the portal to ensure that you're talking with one of our employees. But we fully expect that there are going to be a increase number of scams and false communications out there over the next several weeks as we rapidly approach, hopefully, the resolution of the bankruptcy. So yesterday was the deadline to elect to refi or not. If you did not elect to refi, but you would like to, please reach out to us at sales@saltlending.com. We will be in touch. We are now in touch with Celsius to work out logistics and other things. And if there is anything we can do, we will try to do that on your behalf. So again, if you just, for whatever reason, did not elect to refi yesterday, do let us know if that is something that you are interested in doing going forward. The next step in the process is that you should be expecting to receive another communication from Celsius to communicate who your lender of choice is. Naturally, it should be SALT. And once you do that, that will give Celsius and us an opportunity to swap information so that we can get the details regarding the outstanding amount owed on your loan and start to facilitate the ordering and the timing of the loan payout and the collateral return. And once we get into that process, we will get the loan amounts. And if there happens to be a difference between the loan amount that you put on your loan application versus what we're hearing from Celsius, the team will reach out and we'll be able to reconcile that and get all the paperwork lined up prior to the settlement dates that will happen going forward. And we will definitely increase the communications that we have with everybody that is in the queue and be happy to answer any questions that we have going forward. At this point, Justin, would love to have you jump up. I know you've been on, as you have come in and out of consciousness from the illness. I've been on a ton of calls over the past week, if not definitely longer, but last week in particular. Would love for you to just give a recap for everybody about what the hot topics have been and any of the key points that you want to call out.
Thank you, Hunter. Appreciate it. Glad to be back, everybody. Yesterday, I finally came out of my cave and was able to function. So much appreciated. There's a lot of things that happened and transpired in the past few days. I would say that it's been a whirlwind. A lot of people have chosen set-offs, a lot of people have chosen refinances. Up until the last minute, I was talking to dozens of people about what they're going to refinance or not, and I was always just encouraging them to make sure they pick the right method for them. Some people just want to move on and want to get done with it and did the set-off. Some people were like, you know what, refinance does make sense to me. So for all those people I talked with last night, late last night, and the day before, I hope that you find peace and you can move on. And really happy for you that you're able to actually move forward with your life in general. There is a lot of that going on. That was great. Just wanted to make sure that we helped out as best as we could. We gave it our absolute best shot with Nathan, myself, the loan ops team, and the support team. We've had hundreds of applications go through. We were trying to be as responsive as we could. We were in overhaul mode, I guess you can call it, yesterday and the day before, and it was quite the whirlwind. But we enjoyed every minute of it, helping everybody, trying to figure out what their circumstance was. They're all so unique, and we really appreciate the chance to be able to get to know all of you. So thank you very much. And for those who are refinancing with us, we look forward to you becoming fellow Saltines. So I just want to say that right on the outset. There's some confusion around, and I'll break into this topic later, Hunter, but I just want to flag this. There is a substantial amount of people, or a decent amount of people, I guess you could say, that have questions about clawbacks. And so that one we'll need to discover a little bit more. It's going to be interesting to figure out some due diligence on that, which I will be definitely head that on. And just in general, I don't want to speak too long because I have a lot of things I can talk about. But clawbacks came up. That was one big question that we're gonna look forward to investigating. Was on an AMA with Tony yesterday, who held an emergency last minute refinance questionnaire for everybody. That was really helpful. A lot of questions were answered there. Yeah, it was a crazy day, but all in all, went pretty well. So
That's great. So why don't we jump into some of the topics and we'll address them as we come up as we go through it. Shawn, do you want to kick us off? I think for a lot of people, and I know it's come up in some of the conversations about just giving everybody a little bit more of a understanding of the history of salt, right? Because I think everybody's trust in the company, as well as understanding sort of the support we have for people through the process, both not only through the Celsius refinance, but then just in general, would be helpful context and might spur some additional questions.
Yeah, we'll definitely get into that one. Thank you, Hunter. Nice intro. And Tony, sorry I wasn't able to join your space yesterday. The audio just wouldn't allow me, but I really appreciate the long effort. It looked like a lot of people got a lot of value out of that. We'll keep in the same spirit, answering as many questions as possible for everybody here until all the questions are answered. First and foremost, I would recommend that if you are not sure, because I think this question's been coming in quite a bit, if your ballot was submitted correctly and or if you know that it wasn't, that you reach out to Celsius directly. To me, it seems like the best option is to head towards a refinancing if you're not sure, because there's some time where you can sort that out. Not all of these are going to happen on the exact same day. Justin touched on it, but for example, some of the people that have potential clawback exposure or other types of questions that have to be addressed, we could still work with you on a case by case basis, which is true of everybody's circumstances. Everything is going to be facts and circumstances based, case by case basis. But there's probably more time. And if you're not sure, it would probably be worthwhile. Once we know we can interact and share information back and forth on particular cases with Celsius, we can help there too. So that's a benefit of going through the process if you're not sure. And ultimately, this is informationally based for informational purposes. We believe that transparency is core and that having these conversations, even if it's questions that have come up many times before, we have to be patient and know that information is not distributed universally and that everybody still needs to walk through it. If you have questions, don't be shy. We'll go through as many as we possibly have time for. All final facts and circumstances would be on binding legal agreements that you would sign, which we would want you to have plenty of time to fully understand before you ever sign anything. So nothing is binding, nothing is solid until it's finally done. So take that, which should also help just for conversational purposes to really allow for this space to be very informative. With that, I'll take a breath and maybe just give some history. This does come up time to time, and I often forget that how much time has passed by. But myself, first and foremost, was in love with Bitcoin from when I first heard about it in late 2011. It blew my mind. I became passionate, went down the rabbit hole and never came back. And always wanted to build some value for the community. It's been incredible to see what happened from when there were just a couple hundred people to now the ETF's being approved. It's been a long, crazy, strange journey and many friends along the way. Typically, I used to just run meetups, ran the first meetups in Denver, Colorado. I used to participate in meetups that I didn't run back in Wisconsin, met some great people back when it was a very small community, and used to give Bitcoin away like crazy, hosted the official Ethereum crowd sale, and was too much of a Bitcoin maxi to participate. Just been a Bitcoiner all along, and I've had many lessons along the way. And so some of those lessons have come from, I'd say a majority of those have come from founding the company Sol and the ideation of that from 2015 to 2016, and then officially launching in 2017. I could probably write many books about how many lessons I've learned. And sometimes people will put an objection up to why would we go with Sol if you guys have had a long history and have had some problems. And this question drives me crazy because it seems obvious to me that if you looked at Apple or Microsoft or Chase Manhattan or Wells Fargo or Goldman Sachs, that they've all just had a long history of issues, OpenAI recently, but they still created tremendous value and learned and ingested from that. And Sol embraced this concept in Bitcoin early on of anti-fragile, which means embrace the pain, look for the problems, try to kill it, right? Because a lot of us came to Bitcoin early on thinking this has got to be a scam. We have to prove it wrong. Let's kill it. And we attempted to, and thus we found that it wasn't. And so in that, there's a lot of lessons that come out of that. Salt's had plenty of lessons along the way, and we've continuously been as transparent about those as possible. I believe that is why you should trust us and that we earn trust by being available with the phone, being available by email, being available by Twitter, being available any way you need to talk to us, and being human and being open and being transparent about that rather than concealing it. And my kind of question back to that would be, wouldn't you all be a lot happier if Celsius had presented that they had problems earlier on, or anybody else that you've had trouble with? Wouldn't it be nice if people were more transparent? So that's my answer to that. And if anybody wants to go further onto the history, I'd love to talk about it, but I think there are more pressing issues. And so really, I say all that to just say, if you're on the fence about whether or not you think Salt's going to make it, I can promise you that I will never give up or quit. I've been at this for far too long to not make something amazing for the community out of this, but it takes all of us to build. So all of us have to be continuously looking for the issues, looking for the things that we can improve, iterating upon that, and being available to just think through where we're at and what could be done better. So I'll stop there because I could get ramped up and talk about a bunch of stuff, but we really wanted to make sure the space is focused on Q&A for anybody that's got potentially deadlines coming up with Celsius and make this very productive. I'm happy to take any of that offline anytime with anybody also, if that's a question in your mind about why trust Salt. Hunter, back to you.
No, Shawn, that's great as an overview. And I think the whole theme of that, we really are here to earn your trust. And so if you have any questions, please ask. We will continue to do our best to address them as best as we can. And actually, to kick us off today, Grizzly, would you like to ask your question, please?
Yes, thank you. First, I want to say thank you guys for holding these spaces. Thank you, Tony, for always doing your spaces. The Loans Group have been the most organized set of creditors in this whole entire fiasco that we've been going through. And they keep on putting out exact, clarifying information for everybody. So I just want to applaud you all for that. I am a loans holder, but since I'm convenience class, I don't have any election rights to refi. My loan's not that big. The one question I do have is, does anyone know now at this point what the value of the released liquid crypto is going to be based at now? because I know there was like a 15-day before the effective date time frame, but I can't find it in the dockets anywhere. Too much information out there.
So, Grizzly, just to say that back, you're looking for what is going to be the price of crypto that's going to be returned, or what's going to be used for the return?
Yeah, I'm trying to base it off what Voyager did. I know there was like a 15-day before the effective date,
Yep.
but I'm not sure if it's like an average, or the 15-day prior to the effective date is the price of the asset.
So the crypto price will be determined at noon on the day your loan is settled. So it originally had been communicated that it was going to be the effective date, and that has been updated to provide a little bit more flexibility, and it will be the day that noon on the day that your loan is settled, post January 31st.
There's two parts. There's two parts to that. I think what he's asking is the earn portion of it, which I think it's a 15-day rolling period starting yesterday, which is probably why the deadline came yesterday. So by the effective date, which would be, I guess they claim the 31st. So by the effective date, we will know what percentage distributions everyone will get, and that's for the excess collateral. I think what Hunter is talking about is the refinancing of the principal, and that will be whatever price Bitcoin or ETH is at the time the new loans take effect.
Tony, thank you for the clarification.
Yeah, that was a perfect answer. And I just want to say this about Salt. I've been talking with Shawn for almost over a year now, since everything's began. And when you've had your issues, and I've had other creditors that had started loans with you, I've contacted Shawn at that time. He got right contact with those people and reassured them that it was just a liquidity issue. They're moving forward. They have plans, and you guys work through it, which shows that you have a great understanding of what you're doing. So I applaud you for everything that you're doing, and thank you.
Grizzly, thank you for the kind words, and thank you for asking your question. Let's go to Daylong.
Gentlemen, you probably recognize my voice. Please don't dox me. Hope you're doing well. I just wanted to say that through this entire shit show, the only institution that really has come through and put a smile on my face is Salt. And I just want to say thank you publicly. I can't thank you enough. And a lot of people don't know how much Shawn has sacrificed in his own personal life. I won't say that because it's his own personal business, but this is a guy who really cares about his business at the detriment of short-term, his own doing. He sees the long-term picture here. So I just wanted to I was very active in these spaces early on. I just got so fucking sick of all this that I haven't been on one for probably a year. But I just want to say thank you. Please keep on doing what you're doing, and it looks like you're gonna pull this off, and we could not be more thankful. Thank you very much, Shawn and Justin and Hunter. I think I talked to you about 30 seconds once, but I really appreciate you, gentlemen. That's all I wanted to say. Sorry to take up so much time.
Thank you for the kind words again. And really, I think the whole Salt team is passionate about the community, and it's what drives us, and especially around doing the absolute best we can to assist with sort of the Celsius situation, and then looking on to really the growth and the future opportunities ahead. But thank you. And let's take one more question, and then Shawn and Justin will pick up on a couple other topics as others come up. Killer, would you like to ask your question, please?
Looks like Killer might have stepped back off stage, Hunter, so we can continue.
Okay, very good. Shawn, I want to bridge off of the whole concept of trust and a little bit of the history around Salt and finance to another issue that is related, and that is around rehypothecation. It comes up quite a bit. We have been very proactive and clear in terms of saying we don't rehypothecate. I think in the conversations I've had, a lot of that is getting to what we are doing with the collateral once we get it. SALT is not looking to trade collateral that we get to make a profit, which is what we refer to as rehypothecation. We do take ownership of the collateral because that's how we are able to provide the stabilization feature, which is a key benefit that our customer base really appreciates in terms of protecting the value of the crypto assets. But Shawn, would love for you to add on to that and maybe provide a little bit more context and history around SALT strategy associated with really collateral management.
Yeah, this topic really started to come full circle into the conversation nonstop, I think, as part of the learning curve that everybody went through with Celsius here in this group and other places where it's like, okay, what is this word and what does this mean? And how come I didn't know about that before? And so we get a lot of questions, particularly related to our loan agreement documents. And there's a nuance between understanding how to perfect collateral, i.e., how to put a security interest or how to lock up some piece of property as collateral legally and technically in a way that a lender will feel confident that they can lend money, that they'll be repaid. That requires a lot of language that is similar, but not the same to rehypothecation. And distinctly, there are different ways you can get definition from all over the internet about what this is, and each firm kind of has their own practice. But in simple terms, rehypothecation is when you use deposits from customers of some nature in order to create yield internally, typically through trading or relending or strategies, as they would be called. And this introduces not necessarily that it's inherently bad, but it does have a bad reputation. And there have been a lot of bad things that have happened because of this, because you're introducing risk. And so, in disclosure and understanding how to make sure that people that are taking risk understand the risk that they're taking and that they're compensated for that properly, you have to go through full-blown disclosure and reps and warranties and all the blue sky statements and all the things that would happen when somebody is an investor. And we started saying, okay, we're being compared to these other businesses, and people have no other reason than to assume that we are the same. And so the pressure was on SALT to say, like, how are you not doing that? And we spent a lot of energy to go through and make sure that we hadn't misstated or misquoted. We did find one FAQ somewhere that had the word rehypothecation in it. We took it out. It was out of context. We revisited the loan agreements to make sure that we still had the ability to perfect and put a security interest into the collateral the way needed, but that it was abundantly clear that we were not rehypothecating. We put a presentation together for this and shared it with Celsius directly and other institutions in due diligence. It's something upon request we'd be happy to share with anybody that's interested. We pretty much plan to put a landing page out about this, and we refer to it simply as SAFE, a simple, not a safe agreement like an investment contract, but it's a protocol and a platform that we look at like a program for how do we safely manage assets for funding in an environment that is transparent and also modular, meaning we need to be able to interact with different preferences of different custodians and different terms that are always matched back and forth. But I say this clear as I can because this has been something that pains me, that people still assume that SALT is rehypothecating, and we are not. And if we were to, we would have a separate product and it would go through a whole different disclosure statement, and it would probably have to go through a bunch of regulatory checks, and we may only offer it to accredited investors. There's a lot that would go into making sure that were a due risk that was disclosed that somebody was taking. And although there are a lot of nuances we could get into, I just want to make sure that is available. If somebody wants to go deeper on it, we have material and we can explain what that looks like, from interacting with custodians and other technical providers like Fireblocks and our own backup providers. We originally had a custody business that we were building that we used internal. So it gets technical and it gets complicated, but the simple answer to bring it back home is that we do not rehypothecate for this purpose of making yield off of customer funds that are taking out loans. I got to take a breath. So back to you, Hunter.
No, that's great. If anybody has any additional questions, we'll throw them all at Justin. please come up and ask your questions away. We'll be happy to address them. Killer, yeah, I think you're back up. I would love to have you ask your killer question.
Thank you. Sorry, I had some audio issue earlier, but I was able to hear you guys. First of all, yeah, I appreciate you guys offering an alternative option for those who suffered, those who took out a loan. I think it's a great option. I made the comparison, and certainly weighing towards SALT, and my selection last night was certainly to plan on refinancing. The question I have is in regard to the commitment that we make, because looking at those options, and I didn't catch this until the last minute yesterday, and Justin certainly helped me out corresponding with him late last night. Only those who decide to prepay the loan are given the option of Bitcoin or Ethereum selection. So if one had made a collateral deposit using one particular token, they're really not going to have option of getting that collateral back, which defeats the purpose of looking at getting a loan, because the whole purpose, at least in my case, is to minimize the tax burden and prevent the taxable event. And of course, others may want to consider a loan because they don't have the funding simply. So my question is the timing of when we can commit to signing up the loan, because this has to be a fine balance between the information we get back from the debtors in regard to the timing, and what kind of latitude do we have. Can somebody summarize that in the simplest form?
Yeah, I got that one for us. Killer, thanks for jumping up. It was a pleasure of mine to help you out through the process last night.
Hello?
Can everyone hear me?
Yeah, I can hear
Okay.
you,
Yeah, you're
Justin.
good.
Killer,
Oh,
can you hear
Okay.
Justin?
Yeah. Okay, cool. So, Killer, can you hear me? Okay.
Justin, we're putting you on the spot.
Okay. It looks like it's got some kind of delay. All right, let's answer the question. So basically, what it really boils down to is, as far as I know, and Tony, if you want to correct me, I believe this is correct though. If you're doing a refinance, you're going to get back the collateral that was actually in your claim. So if you have Bitcoin and Ethereum, then you're going to get back Bitcoin and Ethereum, as far as I'm concerned. If you do a prepay, then, which I'm not, that's not my expertise here, so I'll give that a shot. But that, I think, if you're doing a prepay and you do elect to get something else, you can, but then that becomes a taxable event because you're essentially selling off stuff. However, SALT doesn't provide financial advice, and we're not tax consultants or CPAs, et cetera here. But in terms of the actual docket itself, if you choose to do something else, the way I always come back to a first principles basis in this, if you are selling anything on planet Earth, you essentially have some kind of taxable event if you're making a profit, or even if you're not making a profit.
Is Justin
So
there?
ultimately,
Yeah, Killer, he is.
Justin, hold on one second. Killer, Justin is speaking. It sounds like we have some audio issue where you just can't hear him. So I apologize. This is being recording too, so you can maybe go back and maybe hear him that way, but
Okay.
that is
I'll be
weird. Okay.
got it. Anyway, so beyond the bugginess that sometimes happens here on the XAMAs, but just to bring back to the point, there's always a taxable event in general. And it's going to be, if you sell something and then you get something else, then you're going to be being taxed. If you're not, if you're just doing a refi, you're going to get back in like kind. And then that's going to technically be a non-taxable event. That's what we've been told by multiple people and advised on. Again, not financial advice, but ultimately that's a
Check your
distinction.
own CPA for
Exactly.
sure.
Yep.
Yeah.
Hopefully that answers the question.
So here's a, I guess, relatively simple way of looking at it. If your collateral was originally in Bitcoin and ETH, you're not going to have the taxable event because you're going to get back some variation of Bitcoin and ETH. You'll have a tax loss, but not a tax gain, because you'll get back less of your collateral in kind than you originally had. However, if you had a loan in Solana or one of these other shit coins, unfortunately, the only thing the estate can distribute is Bitcoin or ETH. So you can refinance with SALT or whoever, but your new collateral is going to be Bitcoin or ETH. You're not going to have the option to get back whatever your original collateral was. So there will be a taxable gain, or a tax event rather, because they're going to essentially be selling off whatever your asset was and then purchasing Bitcoin or ETH on your behalf. Not SALT, but I guess the estate. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I heard that part, Tony. I just can't hear Justin for some reason. I don't know why, but yeah, your explanation is my understanding as well. But also, it would be possible to, or it would have been possible had I selected an option to partially pay, because that does give you the opportunity to select either Bitcoin or Ethereum. And once you receive that, then get a loan separately. That could have been an option, correct? To prevent the taxable event.
If you make a partial payment, there will still be a tax event because they will be selling off some of your collateral at 20,000 at the petition day value, which is 20,000 per Bitcoin, to pay off some of your loan.
Sure.
So some of it you'll pay off, some of it they'll pay off, and the only way they can pay it off is if they sell your Bitcoin to do.
But at
So
least you have that control as far as how much you can down pay and offset the principal that you owe. In that case, you have a control as far as how much collateral in kind that you want to return, as opposed to just selecting the third option, which is a refinance. You really don't have that option. You're at the mercy of whatever they give you.
I think with the refinance, it would be true also. It's just a different source of capital that's paying the loan off. So if I'm Celsius and you send me money, or Salt sends money to me on your behalf, either way, it should be treated the same as far as whether it was fully paid off or partially. That should be the same treatment. Do you agree with that, Tony?
It would be better from a tax perspective to, again, I'm not trying to give you actual advice. I'm just saying, if you were to refinance the entire amount through Salt, you can then partially pay off your loan through Salt and then just do a reverse margin call.
That is also true. Yeah.
To take back some of your collateral. That way, you're not going to have any tax implications there. Whereas in the first instance, where you partially pay off and then offset some of your loan collateral to pay off the rest, that is 100% will be taxable.
Does that make sense?
Understood. Yeah, obviously we have to consult with tax advisor to get the confirmation, but there's a lot of gray area, certainly. But I get what you're saying. Appreciate the explanation. Thanks.
Thank you for your question. Tony, first of all, thank you for coming up and helping answer some of the questions. Just on the back of that, are there any key points based on the AMA you did yesterday, or even some of the questions that you think are good reminders for everybody, or that you want to call out?
One of the things that I wasn't clear about up until recently, and I see Daylong on here, so I want to hear this. If you have a preference exposure, let's say you have 200,000, right? If your preference exposure is over 100K, they're not going to distribute anything. They're not going to let you refinance pretty much with everybody else. So everything will be held until the plan administrator starts doing their job, until the preference issue gets resolved. What I originally took that as, you can't refinance, but what it looks like is you just are going to be a delayed refinance until you resolve your preference issues. So if you have an earn account, for example, you can offset some of your preferences by essentially giving them some of your earn distributions, and then you can refinance afterwards. So it'll be a little bit of a delay. You're stuck in limbo depending on where the Bitcoin prices go. You're not completely out of luck.
That's a really good point. So yeah, just so everyone knows, Tony's referring to the WPE, the withdrawal preference exposure, or so what people call the clawback. That was a direct answer for that question. So for those on here, I've talked to at least a dozen or so people who have that exposure. That's a really important clarifying point, is that you ultimately, it sounds like, Tony, I'm not sure where you got that info from, but I know that you always find it, and there's some kind of ability to possibly take earn and to pay that. So that's interesting. So for those who are refinancing, you might have to wait a handful of days or maybe a week or two, whatever that looks like, just to make sure that you can finalize your refinance, because you have to take care of your WPE first. That was a really good point. Thanks, Tony, for bringing that up.
Yeah, when I read it, my layman's understanding is that you won't be able to refi. But David Adler, when he read it a few times, he said, the way it's worded, the way it's structured, after the plan goes effective, then all clawbacks and all clawback related issues go to the plan administrator. So it doesn't mean that you're not going to be able to refinance, doesn't mean you're stuck with a potential tax hit. It just means you'll have to wait until your clawbacks are resolved. And I'm assuming they'll probably expedite it. They'll probably expedite it, knowing that they have you in a tough spot. They have you in a tough spot, so they'll know you'll be more willing to resolve it quickly. So it benefits everyone to move faster on that type of situation.
Justin and Tony, are there any deadlines associated with that?
I think that it's just the effective date, right? So after the 31st, that's really when, and that's an assumed 31st, FYI, for everybody. I'm not sure if that's been fully confirmed yet, but that's what everyone's leaning towards. We're all obviously hopeful that happens, but it's at this point, it's basically after the 31st is when we're estimating the first week of February, and the second week of February is where that will commence. But that is just an estimation unless Tony's got other information.
Yeah, so assuming the 31st is when the plan goes effective, I would imagine that Earn is going to be able to withdraw shortly after, and then probably a week or two for loans, only because ours are a little bit more complicated and it's going to take more work in the back end, which is pretty much you guys.
Yeah, and as I referred to the conversations that we're having with Celsius, that we are working through that process operationally. We have not been communicated, or it has not been communicated to us in terms of whether there would be a delay. We're hoping not, but we'll keep everybody posted as we learn more. And I think on the subject of preferences and clawbacks, if you have any of those issues associated with your loan application with SALT, be sure to call it out to the team. And as we are in conversations with Celsius, if there's anything we can do to clarify, we will do as much as we can to act on your behalf. Let me bridge there. I'd ask people, if you do have any questions, please feel to come up. We'll continue to work our way through a couple topics that I know have come up, but we'll be happy to come back to the questions. Want to move on or pick up on the concept of Earn and the Earn payouts in particular, because I know this has come up as a question about how people can leverage their Earn settlement payouts and possibly move those into a loan. Justin, do you want to give a little bit of overview of how people can do that and some of the conversations that you've had to date?
Sorry, to clarify the question, the X kind of did a weird sound blip. That was a question. I can fill in the context for what was the question? I apologize, Hunter.
Happy to say it again. So this is a question about how people can use their Earn payouts if you're an Earn creditor and move them into a loan.
Absolutely. More than happy to. Concurrently, this is what the excuse me. Concurrently, this is what we're trying to effectively do. We're trying to help people creditors get their Earn and their borrow into their SALT accounts concurrently at the same time. Right now, we're talking with the debtor to try to get that done. As Tony said earlier, there's a good solid chance that the Earns will end up having probably some sort of basically being first in line. So we don't know the exact sequence or cadence that's going to occur once the effective date hits the 31st, which is what we're all assuming. So a little bit ambiguous in terms of the information, but in terms of the actual ability for us to get this done for you and Saltines, etc., what we're trying to effectively do is trying to get those both done at the same time. And during the distributions, what we're hopeful to do with the debtor is to get the Earn and the borrow into your collateral at the same time. So a lot of people actually need this. This is actually a really important point because some people have much higher LTVs, and their Earn will effectively get their LTV down to safer levels that they feel more comfortable with, so they won't have to be so anxious. So there's an important thing for that. And also, a lot of people are electing to do Earn for our lend investment product, which we can talk about later. But there's an election for that, which helps reduce a blended APY rate for accredited investors only. But during the process, in the first week and maybe the second week of February, which we're estimating to hit, during that time frame, make sure that you make your voice heard and reach out to sales@saltlending.com to show your interest in wanting to use your Earn at the same time you're trying to do a refinance. Hopefully that answers the question okay.
Hunter, if you're speaking, we can't hear you. You might be having some audio issues.
Is it just me, or has the AMAs and X in general just been super buggy? Tony, we had so many issues like this yesterday. This is crazy.
just comes and goes. We can jump in. So anybody else want to come up that has any other questions or conversational points? We've been specifically riffing on Celsius refinance process and all the nuance, the effective date starting the end of this month on the 31st, us planning on coordinating refinances ongoing from that day on as we work case by case for every creditor's circumstances, case by case on what's best for them. And some of the conversations that have been discussed currently have been around preference exposure clawbacks, which is not a no, it's rather a not yet delay, and also can earn claims be used as collateral, which is a yes. And these spaces are for informational purposes, so feel free to have conversation openly. Anything that would be official would come from our official websites and channels, and always refer to the facts and circumstances that are in the terms and conditions. Nothing's binding until you fully understand it. We have phone lines, AMAs on a weekly basis, 24/7 chat available. So if you don't feel that you want to come up or get your question asked and answered here, you can get it in front of us in any shape that works, and we'll process through it to get back to you. Most official channels are for people that have accounts with SALT. If you don't yet and you are thinking about this, or you elected for a refinance but you haven't gone through the process, we require that you have a KYC account and that you have a loan application pending. Once we get to that point, we can work on the nuance and whether or not there's extra earn claims or multiple loans. All that stuff will come out through loan support. So there, I'll just open it up and see if that sparked any new questions or anything else anybody would like to bring to the conversation.
Awesome. Thank you, Shawn. Hunter, do you want to do a mic check? Yeah, we still can't hear you. Okay, so no worries. Daniel Lomax, you are up to speak, and then AK will be
Hey,
next.
Hey,
Daniel.
thanks, guys. Hey, I might have misunderstood the comment a little bit earlier, but are we getting a different timestamp than earn on how much crypto we'll get back? Is that what I misunderstood?
Yeah, I'll answer that one. That's not necessarily the case. There is no absolute clarity on this. In terms of the timing, Tony's pretty confident that Tony and others, not just Tony, I'm not trying to single you out, Tony, but there's a lot of discussion that it's possible earns could come out first. And the reason why is that the refinances are a little more difficult, right? There's the 12 p.m. Eastern Standard Time day every day at the strike price of the Bitcoin and whatnot. And that is a difficult proposition when you're trying to do refinances. So that is going to be different and unique for all the lenders and borrowers to have that sequence of events come out. So they're going to probably start distributing that in that fashion. So that's, hopefully that answers your question. But the percentages and all the different things, as for my belief, they're all being treated the same, Daniel.
Okay, yeah, that was more my question. Is I guess that 15 days before closure day or whatever, like just if, for example, if we have a $100,000 loan and we're trying to figure out what that Bitcoin price is for the bankruptcy, that's treated the same if you're loan or earn, correct?
Yeah, basically, yeah, that's correct.
Okay. All right. Appreciate it, guys.
Perfect. Thank you. Hunter, let's go ahead and give it another shot, see if that worked.
Yeah, I'm back in.
There you are.
Yay.
Sound good.
Welcome back, Hunter.
All right, next on deck, we have AK.
All right, thanks. My question.
AK, great to have you back
I did
again.
hear. Yeah, thank you. Can you hear me?
Yeah, you sound good.
All right.
Hunter might have a slight mic delay. We're not sure yet. We'll find out. But go
We
for
are
it. Fire
definitely
away.
having
Okay.
our fair
All right.
share of technical issues today.
Yeah, Hunter, you'll have to just be quiet like I did yesterday for a minute, because I think your audio is still off.
AK,
if you
we'll
can hear
bring
me.
you back up. I don't know. Is it
AK, go
assuming
for it.
everybody else can't hear?
Okay. I'm gonna press on.
Yeah, press
I
on.
did hear that the noon price of whatever day they do the settlement or the refi is the quote lock-in price, and that will begin after the effective date, which may be around the 31st. Is there any sense of how soon after the 31st they'll start that, or how
believe-
long until
yeah.
everybody is done? Because it seems like we're forever 2 weeks away. Like we get to a day and then we're only another 2 weeks away.
Yep. 2 weeks. That meme's going to last for a while. The way that I understand it, from just thinking through the logistics with Celsius and in our circumstance, is that post effective date, this plan administrator and the team can start to execute Take, for example, the refinances. We'll be coordinating dates where we can make sure that each account is dealt with and paid off accordingly as a closure and an origination on the same date. We don't know how many of those we can do in one day necessarily. We know it'll take us some days. We want to work as fast as possible for what we can do, but we also know Celsius has to do a lot on their own as well. And I think there's some room to be somewhat optimistic that once this starts to move, it'll be pretty clear how fast it's going to move. And another element of that, there are some people that either need to be delayed a little bit due to their own circumstances that they need to reconcile, or that want to be. And so the queuing up of this and processing through it, I think it's just going to take a little bit of time, but from all visibility I have, it's about to start moving, and there will be people who will be able to show that they've been dealt with and closed out and are final here shortly, right after the 31st, is from what I can see.
Yeah, yeah, you
Thank
answered
you.
the question. Overall, that's definitely the case. I just want to go on record and say that I called this out about a month ago. It is memorialized in the Celsius Telegram room forever. Everyone was saying that was going to happen middle to end of January, and I said it was be happening on February 1st. So I want my street creds. Thank you very much.
Or you jinxed us.
Yeah, you're speaking too soon there.
Yeah, you're going to
February
get publicly stoned.
middle of March.
Thank you, AK. Appreciate it.
Yeah,
Yeah,
did
that's
that answer the question, or you want to follow on? Otherwise, anyone else can put your hand up or jump in. We don't have a huge crowd, so feel free to jump up.
Shawn, while we're waiting for the next round of questions, I think it'd be a great time I know we've mentioned it on previous AMAs about the SALT Lend program. Why don't we introduce this of what we're thinking about for accredited investors, give them a little bit of overview, and be able to field any questions.
Yeah, you bet. So when we talk about SALT lending, we generally in these conversations are talking to the user that is the borrower, but SALT as an originator and a servicer is also facilitating agreements between borrowers and lenders. And there are different tiers of products that exist there. Just like you can imagine, there are borrowers who have small loans and large loans all over the world, and there are lenders that would put up certain amounts of money that are smaller and others that would be more institutional. We have an onboarding path for that because that question took the back seat for the last, call it 8 months. We really didn't focus on having those conversations out here in the public. We only focused on hearing the community and what would be best for the borrowers and thinking through what would be best for Celsius and putting together our best shot at that. However, now that the conversation is coming to a close and starting to process, a lot of conversation has come up around earn claims and how to use those for collateral and what can be done with them, which naturally leads into how does SALT do that? And does SALT have any kind of earn product and how does it work? And so if you think about a traditional relationship between a lender and a borrower and us being experts at the origination, the servicing, and the technology, but not necessarily the ones funding the loan, then you can see that there's a lot of matching that goes on in contracts on both sides, and there's a market dynamic. So when interest rates start climbing higher, we start pursuing more avenues for capital to lend. So we go out and say, hey, the lenders naturally start looking for yield the higher the rates get. When the interest rates come down and they're very low, based off of the demand from borrowers and the market dynamic, lenders will look to put their capital somewhere else, say real estate or wherever else, depending on the nature of it. And there's an impact from the Fed policies all the way down through the central banks into the capital markets, into the hedge funds, into the family offices, all the way down into our competitors and into the market. And one of those elements is for US citizens, accredited investors, the opportunity to seek yield through the platform as an investor, which is a separate onboarding ramp and a separate set of due diligence and a separate conversation. It's a little bit extra on the KYC because we have to look through and see that somebody is a US citizen and what their status is for being an investor, and or if they're not a US citizen, there's nuance and all of that. But simply said, we do have a page that's called saltlending.com/lend. There's an onboarding path there. We do have active conversations in a pipeline. There is a similarity in what Celsius had promoted, and there is real yield that comes from these loans. Obviously, you all as borrowers know that because you're the ones paying the interest payments. And so the healthier the market is, which we want SALT to be the healthiest capital provider out there in lending, that the more demand we have on both sides. And it's a teeter-totter, meaning as soon as there's too much, or tug of war, when there's tons of borrower demand, the interest rates go up. When there's not enough, or too many lenders wanting yield, the interest rates go down. But we have that conversation. This is all informational purposes, not investment advice, not an investment contract solicitation, none of that. But we do need to speak about it. It's a core part of our business, and we do have that product, and it is available for qualified participants. And we'd love to talk to you if that's you. We just would take it offline and deal with it on a case-by-case basis. So that's what that topic is and where that conversation comes from. Hunter, if you're still good on the audio,
Yeah.
let me know, or anybody in the audience, if you have questions on that, we can
No, I think
that.
that's a great overview. And the program really has come out of a lot of conversations we've had with people that are interested in getting exposure and some yield from the over collateralized loan book that SALT has. And so it is a great opportunity. We're starting off with USDC, USDT, and USD as a way to start to launch the program and build it up. And as Shawn said, if you have some interest, please reach out, go to the landing page, and we'd love to have a conversation with you. Jackie, we'd love to welcome up and would love to have you ask your question.
Hi, yeah, I hate to sound like a broken record, but and I see this in the Telegram thread all the time, but any news on California?
Yeah, I'm in close conversations personally with California, and it has become way more of a conversation than I ever thought it would be. And there have been days where I've felt like maybe we just shouldn't be doing business in California, because sometimes it feels frustrating that they maybe don't understand the business the way we want them to yet. But I also have faith that our transparency and conversations and aligning towards what's ultimately the best interest for the customers is paying dividends, and that we should have it resolved soon. And that soon word, of course, is what does that mean? I have a conversation tomorrow scheduled. I'm not going to name names or anything to this degree, but I would tell you honestly and truthfully that I think the reason it's taking long is we're looking for a global resolution that will allow us to be able to do all the things that need to happen from here on for as long as we're around, which we expect to be for a very long time. And so we're taking it very cautious and seriously rather than just jumping to conclusions. I am still optimistic that we'll have public announcements soon that would allow for us to be ahead of these dates coming up. However, we've already been interacting with a large amount of people from California, and we expect to continue those conversations. The best advice is that if you've solicited or talked to us already, to keep those conversations going. We do take those offline, as we always say, one-to-one, because everybody's situation is slightly different. But we expect to be servicing loans in California, and we plan to be growing in that direction. So if you are, plus we just had Dan, and some of our people may just haven't have gotten back to everybody due to the overwhelming last minute demand we've been getting from all directions in the last week, which we knew was coming, that everything would start to come full circle at the last minute now that we're approaching the effective date. But we haven't forgotten about you. We plan to make sure that what is best for you is put first and foremost, and we look forward to getting past that conversation where we have a definitive answer.
Yeah, and Shawn, just to add on, first of all, Jackie, thank you for the question. And to add on to your response, we have, if you're in California or in other jurisdictions that SALT is currently is not advertising a license in, please still put in a loan request. We have received counsel that, especially in the context of the refinancing, there is room to have conversations and do the underwriting on a one-on-one basis. And our goal is to support everybody through this process. But to be able to do that and to be sure that we can tick all the right boxes, please start the process. Reach out to Justin, reach out to sales@saltlending.com and go through the process of submitting an loan request. And then we can work with you and work to complete the required underwriting.
Yeah, I've done all of that, and I've already actually signed the loan docs.
Good deal. Then you're in good shape. Just hang in there.
Okay.
We're burning the midnight oil, having these conversations with people. There's more conversations than we can have one-to-one at the moment, which is what these spaces are for, us to help get a bit ahead of that. on anything that can be generalized and shared broadly. But ultimately, we do plan to have conversations with every single person individually until all the needs are met. And it's just a matter of us processing through it. Good questions. Anybody else want to jump on or dovetail off that, or take the conversation while you have us in any direction you'd like to know about? Tony, anything else you think we may have missed? And Hunter, same question back to you. I know that we really want to be as definitive as possible with California, and sometimes I give the longer answers. I'm happy to drill on that one a bit further if we need to, or go into any other topics.
So one of the California, one of the things with California, right? Whatever issues may or may not be there, that mostly applies to new loans. What's happening
Correct.
here, right? I just want to make this clear. I say it pretty much all the time. Salt is not soliciting anybody. Salt is not reaching out to anyone. Salt's not doing anything. The borrowers, right, on behalf of the entire group, have reached out to Salt so that they can help us refinance our loans. So basically, each borrower with an active loan that is technically in good standing, regardless of the bankruptcy, but each borrower is reaching out to Salt to help them refinance the loan. So Salt isn't originating anything new. All they're doing is just taking a loan that is already existing and in good standing and just moving it over to their platform. That's why, regardless of what might or might not be happening in California, it doesn't matter because the loan was originated in California. It's in good standing in California. So all you're doing is just servicing the loan.
Yeah, Tony, thank you for that clarity. Sometimes we're so deep in the weeds, some of the obvious things have to be stated again, and I really appreciate that. I think I would also just I will be very blunt when I say this. We don't feel like we have any problems in California or with Salt. There's a lot of bureaucratical process that goes in place with just maintaining these licenses across all these different jurisdictions. It's a tremendous undertaking, which is why we don't go into a new space unless we know that there's people who want us to be there. And in this case, we know there's people that want us to be there, lots of them. And we talk to many of them all the time. And if you're one of them, I'm sorry that we haven't been able to be putting you at the forefront faster. But it is definitely not because we think Salt has any issues or problems. It is very much like a paperwork process and getting people comfortable and dealing through the channels where people take off for holidays and they have other things to focus on. And I would say 80-90% of it has been educational. And I mean that by saying, when you start, like when I used to go talking to banks about Bitcoin in 2013, 2014, I assumed a lot of stuff that was way ahead of the curve. And I'd find myself answering questions like, what is Bitcoin mining? And what happens if it goes to zero after like hours of explaining that or anything else? And there's always this educational part where it may seem totally intuitive to everybody here what the loan is, what Celsius is, what the collateral is, what the value proposition is. But somebody looking at this who knows none of that may just say, what is this? Is this crypto? And how does it work? And wouldn't the borrowers just be better? Wouldn't the customers just be better if you just gave them dollars back and we have to go through those Q&A, as painful as it is, and explain, no, we're doing exactly what the customers want, which is to stay in their position and maintain their wealth. And this is what they believe their wealth is. So as you can imagine, sometimes we don't go to that detail on these spaces, and maybe we should. But there's a tremendous amount of energy in advocating for this space to people that are from, say, TradFi or just outside of our space. Maybe they haven't been orange pilled yet, or they have only heard about cryptocurrency from Jamie Dimon. We have to really put our best foot forward and educate things in a way that's on the record, that always puts the risk on, say, myself, right? I'm always putting myself out there. And sometimes it just doesn't go as fast as I'd like it to, which is frustrating. But I have to assume that just like we got here, we'll get there. And look how much we've achieved in the last 10 years. So I'm sorry that we haven't been able to get there as quick as we should have or could have, but we will get there. I assure you that.
Yeah, let me add on to that a little bit. When we were talking to regulators about just being able to refinance, you'd be shocked how little they knew about anything, right?
Yep.
So we're talking about these loans And we're talking about just refinancing with the third parties, parties that have no affiliation to Celsius, are not a part of Celsius, have nothing to do with this bankruptcy. And all they cared about is whether or not Celsius is going to open up again. And then once they realized Celsius isn't going to open up again, it's, oh, okay, whatever, that's fine. That was it. Like,
Crazy.
it's crazy. Like, for example, California acting like they're doing anything to protect consumers, to protect investors. It's such a giant pile of what excrement is not true. They're not doing anything to help anybody, but they have to pretend like they are because that's how they get reelected. And all
Yeah.
that does is it makes people like Salt, who have done everything the right way, it makes your life more difficult. It makes your job harder. Meanwhile, companies like Celsius, they didn't even bother looking at Celsius.
No, I know. They just like what's crazy about it, Tone, just to riff on this for a second, and I'm very respectful. I assume regulators hear everything I'm saying and want to know who I am. And I assume some of them may think I'm a bad person just out of the gate just because they have to be that skeptical, right? Some people's job is to just assume everybody's a fraudster. I respect that. But what's hard is when you're doing the right thing, right? Like you're going through the process, you're applying for all the forms, and you're putting your driver's license and passport up 50 times twice a year, and you're just continuously all over the place following the system that exists. And then there's places where, if, for example, we just never paused, we were worried about FTX in the market, and we paused, and that news caught fire because of the conditions of what was going on at that point in time, in my opinion, into something that's much bigger than really what transpired. And now they've put Bankman in jail for life, and Celsius is basically closed in the amount of time we've still been trying to educate people on how Bitcoin backed loan works. So it's crazy because if we had just continued to imagine if we had just not said anything, which this gets back to when I opened the space, if anybody's here, we're being totally transparent. We're doing everything we can to say, okay, if there are rules, we will follow them. We are not bucking the system there. We are doing what we believe is the ultimate best option for the consumers that believe in this asset class. And by doing such, we found ourselves in some strange places that are painful. But in the long run, you have to just assume that's all part of the deal. Like you have to just say, you can't change what you can't change. So let's just continue to learn from it and get better about it. And at some point in time, it becomes transparent where all the places where it needs to be. And we will look at that and say that's part of paying our dues. But it is crazy to just contrast the two and some of the things that have happened. And it's just as crazy talking about all the people that invested in FTX with no due diligence. It's like, how did that happen? That was definitely backwards from what should have happened. There were a lot of good startups and founders that have been busting their tail that could have used that money to build real value. We just have to take it for what it's worth and push through. It does help to have the customers on our side. We've had a lot of letters and testimonials and people from California say, I want this to be serviced. I am not being scammed here. I want my assets to maintain their position. I'm not trying to liquidate them and get out of crypto. I'm staying for the long haul. There's a lot of ways that we've received that testimonial. And I think that at minimum really makes the case in the truth of things. But I feel like we're almost there anyway. Like I feel if without the holidays and the slowdown, we probably would have already been there. We just have so many competing interests with all the different states that we have to contend with in different jurisdictions that we can't necessarily just stop what we're doing and answer questions for California 24/7 like they probably want us to.
Yeah, great. What a great conversation. I love those points. Jackie, feel free to reach out to me on a one-on-one basis too. And if you have any more questions regarding that, outward, we have to be obviously positioned in a much different way. So just keep that in mind. Thank you so much for the question, man.
Yeah, I do have one other quick question. Hearing everything you're talking about, are you talking to California about being able to do loans, Bitcoin-backed loans in the future, or are you just talking about doing the Celsius refi?
So we have California borrowers that we need to be able to service, and you can't partially service something, right? You can't have a loan. You either have a loan with a lender and a borrower or you don't. We are advocating in all ways possible that Celsius are real victims here, that you got the people that are in California that were a victim of Celsius lost real money, and that this is in your best interest for the people that have come to us and advocated. And we've dumped an incredible untold amount of time and energy into doing everything we can to be the good actor here. And we believe that is because it's obvious that there are benefits for people, that they will be better off if we can maintain those loans and put them in good standing and give people peace of mind. And so the intention is binary in my mind. Either we will never do business in California again, ever, and I'm sorry for everybody there, or we will do business and we will be a good actor and people will recognize that. Because you can't do it partially. You have to be all in.
Got it. Okay. Thank you.
I did originally take the approach of what if we just service some of these, but after, as long as it's been contemplating this, I've realized that's not the right approach. It's all or nothing.
Shawn, that was a great summary. And I do want to just reiterate the fact that we had touched on earlier and you touched on in that summary is that for anybody that is refinancing, we do believe and have received counsel that we have a tremendous amount of latitude to support you in the refinancing of your loan, regardless of the jurisdiction. And so please do reach out and get a loan request going, and that we will go through the underwriting steps that are required to be able to support you. I know we've gone a little bit over the initially forecasted in a lot of time, but we would be happy to answer any questions if people still have them. So we'll make the last call for questions now. See if anybody else wants to come up, and if not, we will always be online to support, either at support@saltlending.com or sales@saltlending.com. Justin, I'll come to you just with if there's any other points you want to make sure we touch on or cover while we are in conversation today.
Yeah, no, thanks. Appreciate it. So I've been getting an incredible amount of emails about how to take the steps. When you try to scale something and you have a massive inflow of applications and et cetera, it shows you like minor weaknesses. One thing I want to make sure of is that a lot of people are actually signing up through the normal parameters by going to saltlending.com and actually open up an account regularly there. There's a significant amount of people doing that. And so what the problem with that is that if you do that, then you're not going to have the sell refi 23 tag on your account, which means that when you go to actually do your loan request, you're going to see like a demand request for certain states like California, New York, et cetera. But if you go through the proper procedures by doing the pre-approval loan submission, in other words, the survey that we send out, we always encourage people to go through that portal because ultimately it gets you to the right destination faster. And then you don't have to be confused and then have to reach out to us to get that fixed on the back end where we apply the sell refi 23 code to your account for the solicitation purposes, and then obviously get you to your loan request so you can conduct your Celsius loan. So that's one and really important one. Again, make sure you go through the pre-approval submission link, what we're calling our survey, and then go through that process. There's a set of videos that our team has made that takes you completely step by step through the entire process. You have the videos and then a very clear language and description of what to do. So if you do that, then your experience will be just flawless. And those that have been really happy about it. But even if you do stumble, reach out to support@Salt Lending. If you do make an account in that way, then go ahead and reach out to support@Salt Lending and they can address your question. Or of course, we can always do that on sales@Salt Lending and reach out to the support team and we can get you fixed up. So I just want to point that one out since there's been just a massive influx of applications. So thank you very much, Hunter, for the opportunity.
No, that's great, Justin. And CH405, I'll come to your question here in just a bit. I do want to bridge on a point Justin brought up, and Shawn, I'll come to you here in a sec, is really around the support. I think as much as DeFi is talked about, and I think what we're seeing through the Celsius situation, and I know with our interactions with people in the ecosystem and customers in general, it's a confusing space. There are a lot of questions that come up, and I know Salt prides itself on the customer support and really our assistance that we are looking to provide. Would love for you to give a little bit of context of some of the how that formed in the early days and what the vision was to be from the beginning of really occupying a unique space for the community in terms of honoring the vision of the decentralized nature of the community, but at the same time recognizing that we all need help at different times along the way.
Yeah, I heard most of that, Hunter. Just make sure I'm on the right track here. So the question really abound, like, why do we support phone support and Twitter support and Telegram support and WhatsApp support and constant ability to talk to humans?
Yep.
Is that the framing?
Spot on.
Yeah, you got to remember, this started with like enthusiasts who believed that Bitcoin was valuable, that if such, it should be property and could be pristine collateral, and that we would be able to create a market that would, by definition, must exist. If Bitcoin is successful, then the credit market must exist to treat it as such as property. And that was back in the day, a lot less people that had Bitcoin or knew about Bitcoin, and so it was pretty natural to talk about this with enthusiasts and people in the space and get their feedback and think about it. We used to have a Telegram group that would run 24/7, and then come 2017, 2018, the space really started to change a bit with Ethereum starting to, the plethora of ICOs as they're called now. Back then it wasn't quite the same, but it became almost untenable. And I, in hindsight, wish Salt had just maintained that Telegram chat all along. We had a really awesome community and it was fun, but it started to get diluted, and we went through a period of time where we were saying we should formalize this because we can't maintain it all the same. We really need to continue with supporting the conversation, but we're probably going to need phone support and email support and ticketing and all the rest as we started to grow and launch. But we've maintained the ethos that no matter how good technology is, this is for humans, by humans, and you need to be able to talk to humans, because you're talking about sometimes small amounts of money or large amounts of money, but it's still your hard-earned work. It's your proof of work, and you should know that it's safe, and you should know that you could talk to somebody about it. And some of these things are just very complicated, and every new person that comes along, they don't want to just read an FAQ. They want to talk to somebody and understand it. And so we do the work and we commit a lot to that, which can be taxing. It's not necessarily scalable. We do have AI integrations that we're really bullish about, and we have support and FAQs, but we think that there's something pure about having the human element. And so we really lean into that, and we don't plan on taking that away. We think we just want to be able to empower converting all of these conversations into FAQs and knowledge that allows us to have higher order conversations. Nobody wants to work in support and have to answer the exact same question 1,000 times a day. So there's some scalability there, but the reserve for us to be able to come out and directly schedule calls and talk to people, I think sets us apart. At least we've always heard that's one of the things people really like about Salt, is that they get to know people, they feel they become a part of the community, and they feel like there's somebody there that really has their best interest in heart and that they can talk to. So that's why we do it. That's why we've always done it, and that's why we always will.
Said, I love the shout out to the proof of work for the average human being. That's awesome. As a miner of 10 years, the proof of work has always been at the forefront of my mind. So I appreciate that notion for sure.
405 would love to have you ask your question now.
Hi everyone, thank you for the spaces and all your support, Telegram, you name it. You guys have been step in step with us, so really appreciate it. I'll be quick, I know it's last call. The group discount, where are we with that? How close are we? And if you guys can publish the numbers, it would be great as well.
Yeah, so I'll take a first swing at this. I can tell you what we think it estimates out to, but I can also tell you that due to the nature of this, with just so many people coming in the last minute, I would say, which we were planning on, we knew that would happen, but there's been a flood of new people coming in. We probably would be best to reassess this as soon as we get past it. But we will honor wherever that is, and we will be publishing that. It's not gimmicky. It's definitely a part of the process. We did take a lot of risk in locking in terms with rates for this group, a tremendous risk. And there have been a lot of back and forth where rates were at, which is why we're driving on the lens side of the business to make sure that we can maintain and honor those. We don't want to have to renege. But it's an ongoing fluid conversation. And so I feel like we really need to answer that question in about 30 days. But to give you some estimate, I think we're somewhere in the $50 million of loans that we feel are locked and signed, that are confident. And then there's a long tail of ones that we still have to work through the process and answer questions, or that we're just starting conversations with for the very first time. So we should probably ask that question. We'll note it for sure. And it's obviously part of something that's a program we put out there. But I don't know that we could give you a solid answer as of today because it's just not a solid number yet.
Thanks, Shawn, for that, Tim. And I guess for those of us that have already signed the paperwork, and let's assume that we do hit that target, how does that work? Do you guys need to issue new paperwork with the new discounted interest rate, or does it just get applied to the app?
Once the loans are live, it'll just be, we can maintain the crediting into the account so that at that point it's an ongoing relationship. But we're hoping to have all of this resolved before all of them go live. And so that's why we've got our work cut out for us in the next, call it 2 to 3 weeks, to really make sure we're getting everybody in the gate that's going to be in the gate, so we can just go to work on actually originating and closing those statements out.
Perfect. No, thank you guys, and thanks for everything you do. Stay salty.
Very good.
Stay
For your
salty.
question, and also Kelly is keeping us honest, and a great reminder to the point Justin brought up earlier about applying for loans in the channel that you need to go through. If you have applied for a loan or put in a loan request and you just forgot to go through the Celsius refinance landing page, please reach out to sales or support and let them know, and then we can get the Cell Refi tag applied to your account. And that will both help add loans towards that target for the discount on the lending rate, but also make sure your loan gets into the right queue as we're starting to both collaborate with Celsius and prepare everything for speedy and efficient refinancing. So we'll make, so Shawn, Justin had done a little bit of a summary in terms of some of the key points. As I'll make one more call for questions, but while we wait, is there anything that we haven't touched on that you wanted to mention?
Just ongoing engagement. I'm sure of it that we will have a bunch of re-listens to this later. So for anybody that wasn't on this space or listens to this later, for anybody that was here that didn't necessarily have a question come to mind when they do come, please fire them at us or have a conversation. Part of our ethos is the more we are continuously listening to you and having the conversation, the better we are for you. So in any shape or form, it doesn't go into a black box. We are not always the fastest to be able to immediately schedule a call or get back to you. But we are very thorough and we take it very serious. And any way, shape, or form that something comes to mind you're not sure about or you want to know about, we will work with you to whatever layer is needed to gain that trust and to help us improve. It means a lot to us that you're here. We really appreciate everybody. I couldn't state that enough. We can't wait to get past the closure of this and on to new challenges. And I really appreciate everybody's time and space. I know there's quite a few DMs and Twitter that I haven't gotten back to. We'll get to you soon. But the most important thing, I think, is for sure, without a doubt, that we need to get your paperwork ready, because it does take some time to really make sure you're fully in the right position with the right terms and conditions and ready in queue. If you haven't gotten there yet and you're not sure, just fire us an email through support channels and or however you need to. And let's get that in place. It's non-committal until we get there, but we definitely don't want to leave you hanging.
Yeah.
I think that's it. I think we're up on time.
Yep.
Shawn, that's great. And also just want to let people know that we will have recordings, these AMAs and recordings of the AMAs up on the SALT website starting next week, just as a resource for future information. And then before we wrap, I do want to, Tony, want to thank you on behalf of the community as well as SALT for participating, but for all you do and have done throughout the whole Celsius sort of bankruptcy and refinancing process. And if there's anything else you want to cover off today that hasn't been touched on, would love to give you an opportunity to do that.
I think it was a really good space.
Yeah.
I am up on time. Tony, a personal shout out to you as well. Thank you for everything you've done. Telegram group and everybody that's been there.
All right.
Hang in there, everybody. We're soon to be having better conversations or new conversations.
Thank you all. Appreciate it. Looking forward to talking to you soon.
We'll call that a wrap. Stay long, stay liquid, stay salty. Thank you, everybody.